For the next practice for the pen tool, you want to start by downloading 03 Pen Tool Practice. And this is where we actually start making shapes using the pen tool that are organic. So I'm going to drag this into Photoshop. And here again, you'll see that we start easy with our geometric shapes. Because we're making solid shapes, I want to set my stroke to none and give my images a fill that is not gray. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a color. Alright, so for my first one, before you begin, make sure you have your pen tool selected and that it's set to shape, and that you have your fill selected and no stroke, because we don't really need an outline on these. So these are straight lines, so I'm simply click, let go, and just clicking on each of the corners. The only time we ever click and hold is when we're creating curves. In this case, we're not. Make sure you're closing up your shapes. I'm going to move on. Just clicking on each of the points and closing them up. Alright, here's where it gets difficult. So here we have our curves again. So how I usually start is I start kind of at the bottom or the top of a hill. So I'm going to be calling these hills. So here I'm going to start here at the bottom of the hill. And I need to create a curve. So in this case, this is kind of like that C curve. So I'm just going to click and pull. And if you remember yesterday, I kind of talked about if you kind of mess up, don't worry about it at first, because you can go in and edit those points and those handles with that white arrow tool that we kind of talked about yesterday. So that's what I want to do. So I'm just going to work through this. So here we have a little curve. You want to watch out because if I were to click and then kind of overestimate a curve and I click all the way down here, notice how it's really hard for my pen tool to kind of create this curve all by itself. So that's why I think it's a good idea to kind of create kind of half the curve, and because otherwise, you know, it has a hard time kind of doing too much. So I kind of just do a little bit. In this case, here's another thing that could happen. So let me go ahead and start over. If I make this curve, notice how this handle that my icon has is way down there. You'll see when I go to the bottom of this curve that this line kind of wants to go out, so I can hold down Alt on my keyboard and kind of edit that handle to fit that shape better. So anytime that your curve isn't fitting right, just hold the Alt key on your keyboard and kind of alter these handles like that. Alright, so I'm going to continue to work. So I'm going to click and pull. And then you can hold down Alt to kind of turn this in the direction you want. In this case, I want to go this way. You always want your handles to be fairly short when you direct them and kind of outside of the shape in the direction you're going. In this case, I'm going this way. So here you can see my fill starting to get in my way, so I'm going to temporarily turn that off. I'm going to click and pull, hold down Alt to kind of turn this handle like this. Kind of click and pull, Alt, hold Alt down to kind of turn this handle to fit. Click and pull, hold down Alt. So notice, like, I'm not putting too many points. Sometimes I see students do, so let me go ahead and edit this point using Alt. Kind of shorten it up, have it going kind of flush with the curve. Sometimes I see students do this. This is not what you want to do. This is going to create really jagged edges. The less points you have, the more smooth your curves are going to be. And I can tell when you do that. Alright, so so I messed up and I kind of created all those points and I stepped backward. And notice how my pen tool is saying, hey, I'm going to start a new shape because it has a star. If it does that while you're working on these, click on the last point you made and you'll see kind of a little link icon. And that way you can continue working on your path. So make sure that these are all one solid path. You don't want to create like multiple little shapes within one shape. So I'm clicking and pulling. I hold down Alt before I let go of my mouse to kind of edit this. So here, that's not going to work, so I'm going to hold down Control Z, shorten it up. All right, and here I'm going to close up my shape, like so. And there's a few areas where you see it kind of doesn't fit right, so now I'm going to switch back to my direct selection tool here, and I can go in and kind of edit the paths a little bit, edit the handles so it kind of fits a little bit better. And then when you're all done, go ahead and give it a fill and move on to the next one. So this next one is going to be made out of multiple little shapes, because see here, this is its own shape, this is its own shape. So I'm just going to go ahead, and this is kind of like a geometric shape. So I'm just going to keep clicking on each of these points, close it up, then I move on to my next one, which is a whole independent shape. And here it looks like we have to create a bit of a curve. So I'm going to step back, click and kind of pull. This is going to be kind of a longer handle. I'm going to hold down Alt to turn it. So I'm holding down Alt before I unclicked because I want to turn it this direction. And I'm not holding this all the way here because this is not, that handle is not a point. So always pull your handles fairly short in the direction of where you're going. And close it up. This is supposed to be rounded, it's just really pixelated. Click. And close it up. The majority of this is mostly geometric shapes. Hold down Alt. Anytime you need to turn your handle, hold down Alt and kind of turn it in the direction, keep it short, at the direction of where you're going. Alright, so you probably have a pretty good idea at this point of what to do for this shape. So I think I want to move on. Just make sure you're closing up each of those shapes. Alright, now for the cat, it looks like it's like multiple shapes, but you just want to trace around the parameter of the cat to create kind of silhouette. So I'm going to start here, click and pull. Before I let go of my mouse, I'm going to hold down Alt. Hold and click. Before I unclick, I hold down Alt, turn it, click and pull, Alt, unclick, click and pull, Alt, then unclick. So just make sure you're holding down Alt and kind of changing your direction of your handles. Now if you were to click and pull and not change Alt, you just hold down Alt and kind of grab that handle. So you see this little icon that looks kind of like a caret, that means you're altering a handle. So that way you can turn it that direction. Alright, so this one's, I think you get the idea on that one. Just make sure you fill up the whole, around the whole shape. And the whale is similar, except for these will have their own little independent shapes. So you want to finish all of these shapes, save it, and then turn it into Classroom. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask.